I'm constantly thinking about my life and the things that I want to achieve. I zone out a lot.
I think about my life and the things I want to do all the time. I also tend to zone out a lot. Sometimes this happens in the middle of a discussion, and I realize that I just can't stop myself from doing it. It's difficult to say what I want people to remember me for, but when I'm gone, I want them to think of me as a full-blown entertainer and a good person. However, with everything that has been going on lately, including the suspicious deaths of Biggie and Tupac, there has been a lot of talk about Aaliyah's death as well. I mean, by now, we can say that her death was not an accident. But what specifically did Aaliyah predict about her own death that makes the circumstances surrounding her death even more chilling? There's a lot going on in Aaliyah's mind, for sure. Aaliyah did an interview in Paris just weeks before she died, and this is what she said at Stark in my favorite dream. Someone is after me, don't know why I got fear. Then suddenly I lift off. I fly away, far away. How do I feel now? It is like swimming in the air free. And without any weight, no one can reach me, no one can touch me. It's a wonderful feeling. Otherwise, I am alarmed by this dream. Somehow, what does it mean that I want to escape from real life sometimes? But from what? From success or the pressure of show business? No. I enjoy every second of my fame. If I could rewind my life back to the start, I wouldn't change a thing. Honestly, surprisingly, a few weeks after the interview, on August 22nd, Aaliyah flew to Miami to film dance routines on a green screen set for the Rock the Bat music video, which was being directed by Hype Williams. And she never made it back home. Now a lot has been said about the circumstances of her death, 'cause regardless of how we look at it, it always seems like her death was planned. If you ask me, the first red flag has always been how Hype suddenly decided to move the filming to the Bahamas, even though they had everything they needed back home. And to date, no one really knows why Hype changed his mind at the last minute and insisted on shooting the video in the Bahamas, when Miami had everything they needed. In addition, it was a well-known fact that Aaliyah was terrified of flying, and she always traveled with her mom or brother. And the one time she was forced to fly without her family, she ended up dying when she actually saw the plane. We had the blackberries. And she said, I don't like this plane. And I was like, well, don't get on it. And she was like, well, I got to, because I got work to do. She got on the plane. And she always had a very serious fear of planes in general image. So she had to overcome a fear to get on that plane on the way there. So was it a ploy to get her to travel alone, since she always traveled with her mom or brother? And get this, Aaliyah's team insisted on departing that day. But she never made it home because the plane crashed to cap it all off. Aaliyah was also meant to stay in the Bahamas until August 26, but they wrapped up filming one day earlier. Damon Dash also told us that Lenny Kravitz was sending Aaliyah and her team a plane to get back from the Bahamas. But Hype Williams took it instead. But why did Lenny send that plane in the first place? Does he also know something we don't? Excuse me, Lenny. But what I was really more tired about was that I had heard that Lenny Kravitz had offered her a jet. And that Hype and took the jet, so that's what really pissed me off about the situation when I heard about that. So you can ask Hype about that. That's what have you ever talked to Hype about it? That aside, can we also talk about the issues that the plane itself had? The first thing is that the small plane exceeded its maximum weight limit by several hundred, which would have made the plane harder to control once it got in the air. Other than the weight, that was already an issue. Apparently the pilot had also reportedly faked his license and was under the influence of alcohol and other stuff at the time of the accident. Then we have Kathy Lowley, who wrote in her book Baby Girl, better known as Aaliyah, that someone named Kingsley Russell, whose family ran a taxi and hospital business in the Abaco Islands, was just 13 years old on August 25, 2001. And he was with Aaliyah as his stepmother drove her team to the airport for her return flight back to the U.S. He said that when Aaliyah saw the plane take her back to the U.S. mainland, she refused to get on board, and went back to the cab. Then someone from her entourage returned to ask her what was wrong. And Aaliyah is said to have repeated her concerns about getting on the plane that was overweight, at which point she was handed a sleeping pill and fell into a deep sleep before she was carried on board again. Why would they need to carry her on board when she was asleep, after she had specifically said that she did not want to board the plane? Now when it comes to Aaliyah, there have also been speculations that her own family was involved in having her unalived. And this was after they allowed Aaliyah to be used by different men in the industry. I mean, R. Kelly lured Aaliyah into a very controversial and highly inappropriate relationship, getting her pregnant, and then forging documents to marry her when she was still underage. Also forced the marriage ceremony to ensure that as his wife Aaliyah would not be forced to testify against him in a court of law. And Aaliyah's family knew this. In fact, Aaliyah's Uncle Barry said that some family members, like Aaliyah's mom, actually knew what was happening with R. Kelly and did nothing about it. Were you aware of the issues going on with R. Kelly? Is it possible that any family member was fully unaware of what was going on at those times? Indeed, I believe my sister was far more knowledgeable than we initially believed. Speaking of Aaliyah's Uncle Barry, did you know that he received $9 million from her death? Rumor had it that Aaliyah was going to leave his label once her album came out, but Larry signed a liability agreement 5 days before she passed away, stating that Blackground wouldn't be held accountable if something bad happened to Aaliyah. Did he know that something bad was about to happen to her, honey? Another strange aspect of this whole situation was that Aaliyah wasn't getting along with most of the people she was working with in the weeks before her death. Sadly, we weren't talking when she passed away, and I believe that she and Missy fell out as well, so she wasn't on good terms with Missy Elliott. And the thing that really bothers me about Aaliyah's death, according to Tim, is that we had an argument right before she passed away. She was fighting with a lot of people because she was sullen and never wanted to play ball, which made her a target. Mary J. Blige even stated that she thought there was a lot of foul play involved in Aaliyah's death, and she claimed to have known she was next. It was only when I witnessed her die that I realized I was next. I don't know how or when, but I'm next. I don't know what kind of freak accident they're going to put me in. The allegation has always been that people wanted to control Aaliyah and use her as a puppet to push agendas. But Aaliyah was a very spiritual and intelligent person, and she was becoming a free spirit, staying away from the narrative Hollywood wanted to use because she was very self-aware, and because it was impossible for her to be used to fulfill the elite's agenda. She had to go. That interview where she predicted her own death was not by chance, though. What do you think, guys? Do you see how Aaliyah predicted her own death? What are your thoughts on the circumstances under which she passed away?